How have you been? How's everything?
I've been
Virus.
I've been good. It's pretty nice my first fall without being in school. Um
Yeah.
and as far as I can remember, so that's pretty nice. And yeah, other than that I've been well. I've just been working on my work and looking for jobs and such, of course. And I just finished a job I had working for RISD actually that went really well. It was kind of a strange scenario. I was working with RISD and for Hyundai Motor Group, the car
Wow.
company.
Wow, that's pretty
They
cool.
yeah, they were sponsoring this program to work with RISD to like push forward design. So I was working with different designers at RISD, and I was mostly focusing on like sound stuff for them.
Ooh,
But it ended up being like a lot of fun, and we learned about like machine learning and stuff. So it was a really good time.
that sounds sick. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Happy for you.
Thank you. How have you been? How's you're in grad
Oh,
school right now, right?
yeah, I'm in grad. I'm in the same school, but I'm doing grad. It's very weird. It's like you're taking the longest summer holiday in your life, and now you realize you're back to school again. I am not so used to school. It's just it's so busy, you know.
Mm,
But it's so far so good. I mean, the situation at school is like a lot of school, they kind of just like keep the studio shut. And then a lot of like my friends, they just ended up not really having school studios. And then, but like my school slate is doing all right. So they kind of have some time for you. So it's doing fairly okay. But it's just really strange. It's never the same.
yeah, I imagine especially going in now must be pretty different from undergrad, even though it's at the same school, not just because of the school, but because of COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so empty last time. Because what we did is like we separate the time slots. So there are two time slots every day, and each slot you can work 4 hours. And the first time slot is from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And like God, like I can't work in the morning like that early. And another one is like 2 to 6. And because of they're conscious about the social distancing, they kind of like the studio is always very empty, and I've never seen that before. So
Mm,
this is really funny. But yeah, at least it's
yeah.
working.
Yeah, no, I'm glad it's working out though. Um,
Mm.
has it still been like a good time, or does it feel different than undergrad or
Not much, apart from you don't know anyone from your year. Not anyone, but majority of the freshers you don't know, because everyone's doing virtually, and it's very vague. You just say hi and that's it.
yeah, that's
Mm,
interesting. Yeah, I've heard RISD is doing something similar as far as like hybrid learning goes right now.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you graduate this past spring too from undergrad, or have you taken
Yeah,
some years off?
yeah. I literally just graduated this June, so
Mm.
literally just finished. How did you find your undergrad?
It was
If you
it
rate
was
it out of 10.
it was great for me. Out of 10, uh, I don't know how I would rate it out of 10, but it was really great for me, and I think it was really perfect timing for me too because so essentially I decided to go to RISD because I didn't really know much about art or the art world or anything, and I wanted to really get into it. I took some art courses in high school, but only like two my senior year, and most of my high school experience was in music. So
Mm,
that's why music is so much of a part of my work.
mhm.
And I thought I was gonna go to music school, but then I got into RISD. I was like, oh, well, I really want to do this. So it was perfect for me because I was starting from like square one in terms of
Mm,
art. Um, and it really helped me all the way throughout. I think that my favorite years at RISD were definitely junior and senior year because just the way that everyone would talk about each other's work and everything was so open. It wasn't like you're learning how to draw. It was like
Oh,
we're talking more about drawing now, which I prefer myself. So yeah, the overall it was really good for me, and it's like very specific to like a lot of things about me that made it really good. Like I think everyone who goes to RISD has a different experience, and another thing that I loved was like my class,
mm,
my year in painting. We're all like really close friends, so that helped a ton. While like the year before us, were not friends with each other at all, so they
lol.
had like such a different experience than we all did. And they would complain about it so much that like when I was going into painting, I was like, oh no, like is this really where I want to be? But it ended up being really good for me.
Mm.
Yeah. How
I
was
think a
your
lot of us.
undergrad?
Undergrad, I think I'm very similar to you. So I enter school fresh. I don't really say this joke, but when I first came to there, I saw Basquiat was a rapper alive. That's kind of dumb, isn't it? But yeah, that's how dumb I was. But I was kind of I was in my A level, and then that's when A level is like a high school thing in Britain. And then it was in my like A level that I find out I can kind of do art. And then people are being very supportive. That's when I ended up in art school. And I feel like an arts institute really form you a lot. And I feel like the people you will look at, the show you will go to, and then the people you think is so hip and cool are all like from a school vibe. Um, and I remember in my first year, people are so crazy about Peter Doig.
Mm.
It's very funny, but it's literally like every single first painting year, there'll always be like a trend of Peter Doig, but he's really good, but it's just the same. And I feel mine is fairly quick. How long is your undergrad?
4 years. How
Four
long was
years.
yours?
Mine is three.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, and we call like first, second, third. So
Mm.
junior and senior for you is like first, second year?
Yeah, yeah, no, junior and senior are third and fourth year, freshman, sophomore, first and second. Yeah.
Ah, that's nice. Yeah, I mean, my first year was lots of friends making, lots of drinking, lots of like confusion, and like second year is like making a bit more work, finding your feet. Third year is rushing to graduate. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it is. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how Rhode Island works, but in Slade, it's kind of like we have three areas. So we have like painting, sculpture, and media. And we all say like you can do whatever practice you want. The area doesn't limit you do specific work. But from what I've seen, it's like a lot of painters at the Slade, they do paint in a very gestural way, and it's like a mass production. Um, in my second year, there was so many painters. We stuck in one floor, and then like it's just so packed. But I mean, people are very confident. They are very proud for having this kind of name of, oh, I'm a Slade kid. I'm gonna make the best painting. But it's a now I think about it, it's very weird. It's like it's a bit like an industry. It's really like an industry, like a factory making. So how is it like in your school?
That sounds pretty similar to our experience. Freshman year for us, our first year, so at RISD we have freshman foundation year, which is primarily uh drawing, 3D design and 2D design. And it's every single student at RISD has to take that before going off into your major. And I don't know how many majors there were total, but there was like a major for a medium in the fine arts section. So there's painting major, printmaking major, glass major, sculpture major, etc. And then there's the designers too, which were kind of their own separate bubble from everything else, from at least from the painting side. So freshman year was really tough. They gave us insane amounts of homework assignments, and that's kind of like what the year is known for at RISD, is just working your hardest and just diving all in in terms of
Mhm.
making art when you first get there. And then in painting specifically, sophomore year is like a middle ground where it's still mostly formalist. It's still mostly getting a grasp on painting itself. Then the second half of the year, you start to experiment more with other media, and you can really start to do your own thing. And then junior and senior year, you can do anything you want to, and it's more it's much more focused on um, like the content of your work and preparing yourself to go into the world. So that's kind of how RISD was set up, at least from my point of view,
Mm.
in the painting program. So it sounds pretty similar, for sure. Um, just the main difference being that first year, I think. Did you have any
Mm.
kind of like intro classes that everyone had to take, or did you jump right into the
We
painting
jumped right
department?
in, and we don't,
Nice.
because I did the fine art degree, so we don't have any kind of in introduction kind of class. You just go in studio and make work, and a little bit of writing, and that's it. So it sounds a bit more like your junior and senior year. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much my 3 years stuff. So what ended up you choosing doing painting and you not really doing like gestural painting and diving into your music interest?
Yeah. I chose painting because I was, well, freshman year, I knew I wanted to be in art school, but beyond that, I was really lost as to what I want to do. I didn't even really fully know if I want to be a designer or a fine artist. And then pretty early on that year, I realized that I really want to go into art over design. Um, and then from there, I think I would have had a great experience at or a similar experience at RISD if I was in like sculpture or any other department. But um, a big reason why I went into painting was specifically because of the departments. When I was looking at like student work and a lot of the professors that were teaching in RISD, my favorite student work and the professors I was most interested in working with were in the painting department. And then beyond that, I was horrible at sculpture in my freshman year. I just did not come to it as well as painting. So that's another important thing that led me into painting. Um,
Mm.
and I'm glad I did painting too, even though most of my work is outside of painting now. I feel like just the conversations that we're having in the painting department, I was really grateful for, and people were really open to the work that I was doing. And I was making gestural paintings like my sophomore year, for sure. But the and I feel like my paintings towards the end of like junior year when I was still painting, I would use some different printmaking processes, but mostly they felt gestural to me in a way.
Mm.
But then from there, I started realizing that, or I started learning more about sound art when I was taking courses at RISD, and I had never really been exposed to sound art or really experimental music before RISD. And that felt like such a perfect combination of what I love to do outside of RISD as well as within. So that's why I've like really gone forth with that and became really interested in it. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? Or
yeah, yeah. Because
yeah.
I was very impressed with like two of your sound work. I actually write the name down. One is the interweaving,
It's
and another one is like the untitled. I think it's the one with the forest as a like the image of a forest in there. And
mm.
I was like particularly impressed. The second one, it's very interesting because it was the concept was about loneliness, isn't it? But it's like very almost like a optimistic loneliness. I think it's just a like digital kind of effect of it. So why did you choose to like do digital effects of this music?
Yeah, well, I want to jazz was particularly important to me in my upbringing within art and music because most of the music I was listening to and I was playing on was jazz that I learned through my high school and such. And one of my favorite pianist, Bill Evans, at the time too, when I was coming home, I just had like a lot of because of COVID, I had a lot of like
Mm,
memories resurface of like Bill Evans and his work too. Um, and I want to work with all of this context that surrounded his work for me, and that piece in particular. And I want to start to build off of that because I felt like if I started with just ground one of like making my own music, it wouldn't have the same kind of context or relation to my personal surroundings and my personal relationship to that song. So then kind of experimenting with it and essentially sampling it through letting the computer and the algorithm control a lot of the most pretty much all of the reproduction of that
mm.
song. um I felt like uh would start to convey my points more so than if I had done it. um does that make sense? I feel like that wasn't a very good
Yeah,
explanation, but
it's
yeah.
interesting, but I'm slowly getting there because I do feel I'm very painterly based. So I'm like grabbing this information of um music production. So sorry.
Oh no, you go.
Oh no, sorry. I just feel I'm keeping questioning you. Like I think I should give you the mic.
No, no worries at all. Yeah, no, yeah, I was wondering about your work too, like just like what if there's any artists in particular that you've been looking at lately or any writing that you've been interested in lately. Because
Mm,
oh, one thing I noticed about your work too is a lot of the paintings felt uh very similar to film stills for me, so I was wondering if film had a
yeah,
important relationship to your work.
yeah. I mean, I think uh this kind of cinematic quality is I kind of start applying it without being aware of it. And I sort of paint from photography, and that has already been a reason that make my painting kind of flat. But I think it's just kind of a natural way of people perceiving now. And beside that, I kind of just get very like attracted by this like aesthetic of like how film make the positions and the focus point, and especially this kind of um, the sort of the characters eye contact and stuff. So I think yeah, that's how I feel if I'm looking at like a still image. I want to have this sort of visual effect that really grab people. But I didn't really think about it kind of before. It's really like in my kind of final year I start thinking about it. Um, and I think for artists, definitely Luke Toyman's. Um, I was kind of just grabbing Luke Toyman's styles and like use of color before because it is in a way very striking. It just grabbed people's eyes, even though he paints in a very fast and almost very thin way, but he just painted so well. And sort of, I feel, I feel the time I start thinking about him more than how he paints is kind of when I find my feet in painting. I think it's in when I was in school, you spend so much time to figure out you can do art, you're good at something. And then I feel after that certain point, I feel, oh, I can really make something just about like maybe like a concept or something more fun rather than prove I can paint. That's when I sort of think about why Toyman sort of paint these like memories, because a lot of his work is about this like after World War II memories about his background and everything. So apart from Toyman's, then is, gosh, what's her name? Elizabeth Payton. Um, because she paints really beautifully, and at a certain point, I was very like encouraged by her kind of. She was very brave just to say, I would like to paint these people because they're beautiful, because they have a like a beautiful soul and everything. It's I think it's mainly last year I was very much attached to this like realness, and then like the way she approached to sort of adolescent people or um, like people in vulnerable situation. I think it she has this like very sensitive gaze, and it's kind of similar to Nan Golding. So I think in a way, all these three artists have a very big relationship to photography, and I think it just automatic clicked to me. So I think that is sort of the people I was looking at when I was still having a studio to make art. And I think during the whole quarantine, I didn't paint like I was at school. So I'm being very out of this factory made context, which I'm very grateful. It's not I don't like painting anymore. It's just I think not making is like making, um, because I think it's just when you make very gestural painting, you get very soaked in. You're in a conversation just with um, your fit, like your body and the canvas, and you just don't think anymore. And now I have some time to think what I've been making, and it's the time I sort of decide I want to do a bit more research as well. So kind of for my MA, I kind of just choose the topic to think what is kind of painting gonna do in this digital era, because it's always been a question that people kind of bring up and just let it go. Um, but I feel like because of the COVID, it's like it's just never gonna gone. It's gonna happen, and you know, I just feel it's first of all, sometimes we don't go to museum, and we've been perceiving a lot of stuff online. And I think the idea of Instagram is also really interesting. Here I'm kind of referring Balenciaga. I don't know if you follow up with them, but this is like a very, so so Balenciaga is this like a fashion brand that they well sell very luxury products, but at the same time they run this Instagram page. In a way, they to me, I think they bring up a aesthetic. I think I probably should take it out because I've been saying Balenciaga all the time though. So this is their page, and it's very like how can I say it? It's kind of like humor, but they having this like humor, fun, but easy kind of vibe on Instagram, and they really is like creating sort of an aesthetic slash content. They're just image making, and I feel they are really they really know the rule of playing Instagram. And I feel this is kind of a new thing to think about. Also, a thing to doubt about because that's how you perceive people, isn't it? So I feel this would also kind of erode the painting industry and everything. So I think that's somewhere I'm gonna think about. Sorry, I've been speaking so much.
No, 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 it's very interesting. I appreciate it. It's great. painting in particular in terms of like relation to digital era is always such a tricky subject because there's so many people who are just, well, painting is dead or painting will never be dead, and that's the end of conversation. So I like the way
Yeah.
that you're thinking about it and writing about it is interesting.
Mm.
Yeah. I in my that job I was talking about with Hyundai, since we were focused on machine learning, our professor sent us this really interesting article I can send you to about machine learning in relation to painting and how like
Mm.
machine learning will start to understand um, styles and then be able to build off of other people's styles, because previously machine learning was just um, taking, or the type of machine learning that we were working with at least was taking all of these different images and then making something that fit in with those images but wasn't any of those images. And there's been a group of people who have developed a way for machine learning to do that, but then make it so that they're in a different style than to start to understand artistic style, which I thought was really interesting and feels related. Yeah.
That's so exciting. So
Mhm.
if I'm right, potentially they can be another artist, but they're non-human.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really interesting process. The type of machine learning we were working with is called StyleGAN. And it was just really fun to like work with and get to understand. But we were primarily working with photography when we were experimenting with it, because you need thousands and thousands of images to get it to like work properly.
Mm.
No way we could paint 1,000 paintings in the amount of time we had.
Mm.
So, but yeah, no, it was really interesting. If I think of anything else from that project that feels related to, I can send you,
That's super
for sure.
exciting. Oh my God.
Mhm.
It's kind of scary because, you know, it immediately feel like you are so replaceable.
Yeah.
Like I know it's so something so far ahead, but it's always the same. I just feel like we're so replaceable. What is the job that's like non-replaceable nowadays?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we used to think that like creativity was the only thing humans have. So when that gets
oh
taken
my
away, it gets
God.
even
And
scarier.
and you literally just told me like, oh, just let you know, I'm actually working for this job that in the future we're gonna be replaced.
But yeah,
No.
the so your grad program is in painting too,
Mm,
correct? Or yeah,
yeah, yeah,
cool.
in
So
painting.
do you think you're still working with gestural painting, or is your painting
Mm,
practice shifting a lot?
mm, I think um I think I might not do so much gestural painting without thinking about it because that's the most tiring process of making. And I think I'm more, it's easier for me to do smaller ones and you can have control. But now I just feel like since I really question about why you make things so fast and so many of them like a factory, um, I think I just have more time to think about what to paint before I make it. So now I've seen a friend and he's been interning for an artist. They've been using airbrush. So I'm probably gonna steal that technique. So I think this might be a good time of learning some new stuff and painting with other medias, maybe, or simply doing something else. I don't know. Haven't started
Yeah.
yet. Yeah. How
Yeah.
about you?
Yeah, I feel like I'm definitely in a similar place in terms of my painting practice. I feel like at this point I'm in a confident place with my sound and video practice, but I don't want to give up painting entirely. So I'm at this kind of like new middle point where I'm trying to figure out what I should do with my paintings now, because my work used to be um, fully abstract for the most part in painting. And abstraction is still important to my work, but at the time, like I felt like my work was a little too formalist, I guess, so at least um, in my intentions of creating the work. So now I'm trying to think about how I can bring in some of the topics and things that I've been trying to work with in my sound and video work, and also bring that to my uh, painting work without trying to reinvent the wheel into, because I
Mm,
don't want to like become a figurative painter overnight. I still want to try and figure out where I can bring these things together in terms of painting, but um, with my sound and video practice, I'm just trying to keep going forward, I guess. Yeah,
mm.
I'm in less of a middle ground space, for lack of better description. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting because to me, I didn't see you do very gestural painting because I was glancing your website and all I've seen is the printing slash making you've made, and that to me seems like very well planned, and they're like very precise. So how did you do them, or they're just like printing?
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear too, because they, I think it's kind of a mixture of both ways of working. Well, I started out with, so um the black and white paintings were all monotypes that I collaged onto canvas. So the original paintings that I was doing were very gestural, but then I would print them and collage them. So I think it was that point of collaging that it becomes much more planned and composed, and
Mm,
um, to put them onto the canvas, for lack of a better way of saying. And then there's these three paintings too that are on my website right now that are in color and have different imagery, and those were from magazine clippings that I would work with and try. I'd use different chemicals to work with the ink that was already on the paper in different ways, and then I'd print them up very large. So those, I think, were, in a way, they were gestural in the way that I was working with the ink, but the base image was so it was a photograph, so it still has that quality of photography and collage and stuff, if that
mm.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like processing images like as a painting process. That's very interesting to me because it's not just like one way you're like building up the paint, and then like just like keep on painting until you cannot paint anymore. It's
Yeah.
very like different from what I've been doing. Yeah, that's very exciting. God.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Mm,
one of my professors sophomore year, he'd say the same thing to me in every crit, which would get annoying, but like he was right. Was that I needed more tools, is what you'd say, because I was just using the oil paint and canvas, and I just needed to experiment with other things. Not that
mm,
that was just true for me in that specific time, because my paintings when I was a sophomore were getting very boring and samey. So yeah, I think that's kind of like that, along with me taking some printmaking classes, pushed me into what I was doing then for painting.
mm,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah, I
Um,
was checking out your prints and paintings too, and I was interested in how you kind of decipher between your paintings, drawings, and prints, because they all feel, you can tell they're the same artist, but they still feel very distinguished to me, if
yeah.
you distinguish them so much in your mind. Yeah.
Um, I mean, I heard that feedback quite a bit because people been saying like I look at your work and feel like from different people's hands. I think to me that drawing, printing, and sort of small size painting that is like less maybe than 120 centimeters, these sort of size, um, is very controllable, just because how I physically paint and this how this move, um, it really gives me the ability to make it very drawing like, because I feel when I have the control, I can have more power in doing the lines. And I feel sometimes, to me, thinking about like these drawing lines um, cannot become like a style. And I feel like it's not necessary to have a style to show off, but it's really like it's a bit like Chinese choreography. It's like the way you write, it shows your personality. So I feel like this is something that brings like the artist persona in the painting. Um, yeah, I think it's kind of like a signature thing, and I just keep on having it. But then I think it changed a lot when I come to bigger painting. A lot of the time I feel if I paint something that's about 2 meters, it's going to be a disaster. It's just very complex because you completely lose control, and um, it's a very hard thing because you cannot decide whether it's good or not today, and you come back and you're gonna have a constant struggle. But I feel when it's big, there are like only quite a few, like no, sorry, just like very few paintings that I actually know why I want to do it like big and to kind of separate them. So there's actually one that's called City of Desire of Love. So that's like a kind of like a collage. So one is like a drawing of two females, and the bottom is like completely black. That one is kind of me responding to like a movie night crop. Um, and I feel like it doesn't make sense when you are doing like a very small um, 30 by 40 collage, and also um, you just lose the texture of this like darkness and everything if you do it like on wooden panel. So that's one painting I actually decide to paint big and think about um, like what a big canvas can do. And another one is maybe the old like forest painting I've done. Yeah, I think they are the two. Otherwise, I think it's this all the other very big painting is this very anxious vibe you've got at school. It's very interesting at this thing at the slate. It's like everyone tries to prove they can paint, so people paint massive. I've seen someone paint like 3 by 4 or something. I don't know how this person's managed to stretch the canvas, but it's really like a thing that people just anxiously want to make it happen. Um, is it kind of the same in your school?
Yeah, definitely.
That's
Well,
crazy.
at least at at certain points it felt that way. I think at RISD, like I 100% relate to that.
Yeah.
But then there's two professors that I had who was like, um, don't let that be like painting baby some sort of toxic masculinity that you have to like show off your work. I think that
Oh my
kind of
God,
let
great
a
burp.
lot of students like relax about making big paintings. Yeah, I think at times like so especially early on professors would still encourage it because like it can be a very difficult thing to paint big, but then later on we would be like you shouldn't paint big just to prove yourself. There should be
Yeah,
like very explicit reasoning to that, as with painting small and everything else. So
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
totally.
quick question. Uh, just because we talk about big painting and then I have so many disaster in painting, I remember you were saying in your practice you really focus on failures. So how do you sort of think about failures in your work? Because you're working in a very like, I think it's just kind of different approach to mine. So how do you see failures? How do you work
Yeah.
on that?
So my senior thesis project was focused around glitch and failure and what that means for my work. And there's a lot of different books and essays that I was looking at in terms of relating it to my work, because the first time that I started to like really notice and think about it, it was very like literal progression, but When I was working with collage, a lot of my process was subtractive. So I'd make these big paintings, then I'd just rip them apart and collage them together. And my paintings weren't had very little addition to them afterwards. It was mostly subtracting and gluing to the canvas. So we had this assignment in my third year where we all had to choose a topic for everyone else to give a research presentation on. And the topic that people decided for me to present on was ruins because of my process. And I was reading, I actually have this one book here that I used for my project on ruins. So this was a book that
Oh,
I was looking a lot at the time. It's just a collection of mostly artists talking about ruins and art historians and such. And I was interested in how much like the idea, at least in like the history of European painting and aesthetics, how much of the association to symbolism with ruins related to my work, and how much of it for me was subconscious because I wasn't thinking about it at the time, but it really rang true and felt true for me in a lot of cases. So I was getting more interested in that. And then later that year, I took a class on sound art, and my professor gave me this essay called The Aesthetics of Failure, which is specifically about elect- electronic musicians who would use their equipment failing as part of the aesthetic for their sound. So it was dealing with more of a like technical, formal idea of failure than the symbolic part of ruins. But I felt like for me and my work, I was doing a lot of both. And I felt like there was a lot of ways that I could lap over the two. So that's when I started getting really interested in it. And with the aesthetics of failure, that essay, I was started really looking a lot at Fluxus work. So a lot of my later work in senior year is inspired by Fluxus and what that movement was doing as far as artists using performances, and some artists in particular were using these processes of decay in their work. Like there's this one artist in particular who visited RISD, who was part of Fluxus. His name was Yasunao Tone, and he developed this, or he worked with a programmer to develop a artificial intelligence that would he would feed it corrupted MP3 files, and the artificial intelligence would attempt to fix the corrupted MP3 files, and the result were these just like really dense, chaotic layers of sounds that just seeing it live, I was really interested in that whole process too, and how he got from point A to point B. And seeing him at Bristol was so cool performing because he was just like holding up his laptop and he just looked so excited, and he's like 90 years old. He's just like incredibly old, making this incredibly harsh, abrasive sounds. And he
wow.
was so nice and gentle, and it was just like a really cool mixture of things to see. Sorry, I've gone on a big sidetrack, but just like his performance was really inspiring for me in my later work. And do you know the artist Hito Stayero?
No, I don't. Actually, can
Yeah.
you send it to me?
Yeah, totally. She was another artist that I took a class on video art, and the professor showed us this one of her most famous pieces that I can send you to. Blanking on the name of it right now. Gotta look it up real quick. How Not to Be Seen was one of her most famous pieces. And in addition to it, she wrote this essay that I'd read called In Defense of the Poor Image. It's this whole she studied philosophy, and there's this whole essay essentially defending low resolution image files and such, because of all these associations we have to high quality images in terms of commercialization and capitalism and stuff,
Mm,
and the association of low quality images, like low resolution, to academia, and this like one of the things that subconsciously or often subconsciously distinguish between like video art and commercial art and so on. And I thought that was really interesting too, and would kind of play into what I was interested about glitch and failure, and I felt like it fit into that narrative, if that makes sense. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, I definitely gonna have a look because I kind of like her fight about the low resolutions. Can you
Yeah,
send it in the group chat, Zoom group chat? I just find
yeah,
it literally.
totally. Um, Keto sterile. I'll sense how not to be seen. It's funny what you were saying about film too. When I was in my third year, because I was making both sound art and painting, every single time we had a visiting artist come and critique our work, they would always be like, you need to get into film, like film is your answer because it combines these things. And I was so stubborn because I loved painting and sound for different reasons at the time. And then I
Mm.
took this one video class and I saw her work. I'm like, I need to make film now and video art. So it was just kind
That's
of funny.
great. That's
Yeah.
great. Because I was thinking about it just now. I was like, sounds like your work is going to like a direction of combination, or like at least these two exist at the same time to me. And this kind of reminds me a little bit of not necessarily your work, but just the way of how these two can combine. Do you know artist Jutta Kuta?
Oh, I don't.
Oh, she's a German artist that a lot of people, not a lot of people, like certain painters in my year were crazy about her. That she, like the things she paint are pretty mad, and this like her painting have a really great vibe. There's this show, well, in Germany that's already finished, but the thing about her painting is that her painting is like a very performative way, and you can have a look on like YouTube if you just spend like click her name and the first video came up that she kind of just like read the poems and also like just have this whole series of performance right next to her painting, and then this like these two really serve like a kind of energetic, almost violent, vigorous like ways of painting. And I think that's like something really kind of new about like what painting can be, because if you just paint and present like a visual scene, and also now people just like put it on online, it's no longer a painting. So I feel like kind of having to sing together is like could be cool. And also I can just see you doing so many performance with your own like music. Yes, I just grabbed your like um website. Yeah, and I think that would be really cool.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, no, I'll definitely check her out. That sounds super interesting.
Mm.
Yeah.
It feels so like an after school like a small academic chat.
Yeah, no, totally. It definitely feels like I'm still going back to art school in a way, which is fun.
Sorry, I'm so art school vibe. Um, I feel I'm just going back to it again.
No,
Um,
that's great though. Um, Also, there's two artists I want to send you to, who are professors at RISD, who your work made me think of, so you might be interested in theirs. I'll send their work in the chat, um, or their names, but Jennifer Packer, who was one of my favorite professors that I had at RISD in the painting department, and Angela Dufresne. So I was reading from my
ooh,
notes, but yeah, she both of their work just formally reminded me of your work too, and
mm,
vice versa. Jennifer's in particular, her work has a lot of these like transparent layers of paint that I'd seen your work as well, and Angela's work often comes from film stills and movies, while still remaining very gestural in a way. So yeah, both of them were really inspiring to me at RISD. So yeah,
Thank you so much. Oh my God.
yeah, for sure.
Little
Yeah.
school club.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Should we should we call this small interview for now?